Alex Pereira did it. He goes and finishes Jiri Prochazka in the second round. I was spot on with that prediction, but it was absolutely an early stoppage. Jiri Prochazka wasn't completely out. I mean, I understand you don't need to be completely out to get finished, but he definitely should have gotten more time, especially knowing who he is. Jiri Prochazka is a guy who's come back after getting hurt so many times. There is an argument the other way that Alex Pereira was in such a dominant position. He got into full mount on top of Jiri. It could have been over from there regardless, because that is such a dangerous position to be in, especially under a guy like Pereira. And the guy was rocked already. While he was trying to stand up, he was wobbling, so I do think it's an early stoppage, but I'm not too mad at it every time I see the replay. The fight was very interesting altogether though. It was a very good fight where they came out with completely different styles. Pereira was destroying Jiri's left leg, took him off his feet with one of them. The power of those leg kicks is absurd. And not only that, look how he was timing his leg kicks. He would kick at Jiri's leg when he would take a step with it. There's two distinct examples of him doing it in the fight, and it's very interesting how he's able to time it that precisely. Look how Jiri steps with his left foot, and immediately after the step, Pereira targets it with a leg kick. Another example, he does the exact same thing. As soon as Jiri goes to step with his lead foot, Pereira waits for it and then attacks it after the step is done. Jiri Prochazka was doing all his weird stuff, switching stances, low feints, bringing out his hand to the side so he can throw a leg kick at Pereira, which worked effectively. He was ducking low and throwing the uppercut, anticipating Pereira to reach forward and duck his head, knowing that his legs are going to get attacked from a takedown, which worked beautifully. And he was doing this fake takedown to land his punches a couple times throughout the fight. There was another one where he actually reached forward with both hands toward the lead leg of Pereira, getting him to take it away, which also gets him off balance. Look how both of his feet are side to side. That's a very good position for Jiri, and he's able to land a left hook because of that. And off of Jiri's feints, there was a time he baited Alex Pereira successfully into throwing a jab at him, slips on the outside of it, and then counters Pereira with a big left hook. Very good shot from Jiri Prochazka, outsmarting Pereira in the fight there. But eventually Pereira was starting to get used to Jiri Prochazka's feints. There were times where Jiri would duck his head, the usual feint he would go to, lower his head at you, and Pereira went to intercept it with a jab, which forced Jiri to pull back right away. And there was a time where he leaned to his own left, and Pereira intercepted that feint with a right high kick. So Pereira saw where his head was moving and tried to intercept it with the head kick, and Prochazka even gave him props for it. Or what about where Jiri goes to cut off the cage from Pereira, who is constantly on the back foot, trying to get away from Jiri's weirdness? And I'll talk about as to why he was doing that and wasn't aggressive as we're used to seeing him. Jiri steps to the side to cut him off, and then hop steps immediately. There's barely any time between the first step and the hop step. Look how he hops with both of his feet to the side, gets an angle for his right straight through Pereira's open guard. Pereira was reaching forward constantly throughout the whole fight. It was actually his main defense to everything. Alex Pereira, against everything Jiri was doing, besides when his back was too close to the cage, he was moving back and reaching forward, trying to get away from all the weirdness. And I think he did this to simplify the fight as much as possible. Jiri's a weird guy to fight, right? He's very awkward. It's hard to understand exactly what he was going to do. And it even showed in this fight the amount of times Jiri caught Pereira with these awkward feints, weird angles he was taking and stuff like that. Pereira's answer to everything was to just move away and reach forward, create space between them two so he can reset. The cleaner the fight was, the more he was going to take advantage of it. That's why he was landing the leg kicks from range. And that's why it caused Prochazka to be a little bit more aggressive to get away from these kind of leg kicks. And also, switch stances was a must for him. But yeah, everything Jiri was doing, he fakes a takedown, Pereira extends his arm and moves away straight back. Jiri goes to throw a right overhand, Pereira extends his arm and moves away. Jiri throws a head kick, Pereira blocks the kick and moves away at the same time. Jiri tries to set up with the jab, Pereira again extends his arms and moves away. Even when Jiri feinted, right, he feints low, which he did a few times throughout the fight, Pereira extends his arms and moves away. That's a reason why we did see Pereira back up into the cage so often throughout the fight. You can only move back so much. So what did Pereira do when his back was to the cage? Well, most of the time, he would use his left hand to exit. He'll throw a jab, walk behind it, and get out of this pressure successfully. Or he would throw a left hook instead and walk behind his left hook for the exact same results. That was mostly what he was doing to get away from the pressure, and he successfully got the fight to the center off of doing this. There were times where Prochazka was able to clinch up with him, land some good knees, stuff like that, and even get a takedown in the fight, which was concerning for Alex Pereira, and I'm surprised as to why Jiri didn't go to it more often, because he did land it, right? He goes and throws a right straight to the body. At the same time, Pereira throws that outside leg kick that crushes the leg. Pereira tries to follow this up with a right straight, and Jiri slips on the outside of the punch, enters by switching forward for the single leg takedown. At the same time, Pereira is trying to intercept him with the left hook that only grazes him. Pereira did threaten with a pretty interesting guillotine. I thought he was going to get it, but as soon as he lets go with his right hand, knowing that he doesn't have Jiri in a tight squeeze, Jiri picks him up with the high crotch and dumps him, holding that position for the rest of that first round. The other thing that Pereira did when he was backed up to the cage was finishing Jiri Prochazka. Jiri did mess up a bit. He did something that he doesn't normally do too often. After Jiri pressures Pereira backwards, catching him with the right straight with a very reaching combination. He was really trying to get in there. And note, most of the stuff he was doing in the fight was backed behind feints, different looks, distracting Pereira before he attacks. The moment he gets dropped is a time he recklessly threw an overhand with no setup whatsoever. His hands down at his waist, no feints, no setup, no distraction. He literally just wings an overhand. No awkward feints, no tricks, nothing, and that's all Pereira needed to see. When you throw shots like this at someone like Alex Pereira, he's going to capitalize. And I'm pretty sure when Jiri goes back and watches this sequence, he's going to be kicking himself over this. Why would I throw something like that with no setup? My setups have been working for me. I don't know why he threw the overhand like this. Maybe he got desperate. Maybe he believed that he had Pereira hurt because he did hit him with that right straight. But even after hitting him with the right straight, he was throwing left hands in front of Pereira's face. He didn't get reckless immediately after landing the punch. But as soon as Pereira got backed up to the fence and Jiri planted in front of him, that's where he threw nothing. Just the overhand itself with a huge telegraph. There was too much tell to land this punch clean on Pereira. So Pereira pulls away from the punch. It looks like it may have just touched him a little bit. Overextends the punch. Jiri is actually switching stances into Pereira. That's how much force he was throwing forward. And Pereira grazes a right hand counter, punching his head to the other side, intercepting it with a left hook. And it didn't even have full power. He didn't even get full extension on the punch. It wasn't a full power left hook that we're used to seeing him land. Pereira has absurd power in that left hook. It just doesn't make any sense. And that's where Pereira started landing a bunch of elbows, further hurting Prochazka. And for a second, it did look like Prochazka went limp. It looked like he may have gotten KO'd at that point. But he does reach around the legs as he's falling backwards. Pereira lands at the full mount, and that's where the ref stops it. I think he should have waited just a little bit. But ultimately, Alex Pereira wins the light heavyweight title. He's a 2-division champion, something that Adesanya could not accomplish. Everything Adesanya attempts, Pereira succeeds in it. It's crazy how that all plays out. They fought each other. Pereira won 3-1. They both won the middleweight title. Adesanya lost to Jan. Pereira beat Jan. Adesanya tried to become a 2-division champion, failed at it. Pereira accomplishes that goal. And now he is, in my opinion, like top 3 or 4 greatest combat sports athletes of all time. You could even argue he's number 1 or 2. What he's been able to do in such a short amount of time in the UFC has been astounding. He survived on the ground with Prochazka. He survived on the ground with Jan Blachowicz, where a lot of people did not think he would be able to. He outstruck almost everybody he's fought and has already become a 2-division champion faster than anybody else in history. Alex Pereira is definitely a special fighter, man. So I hope you guys enjoyed the breakdown, and if you did, make sure to give this a like, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next video.